Good evening. Today is January the 12th, 2021. Hope everybody's had a good day. Today marks the 20th anniversary of the death of a very dear friend and former employer of mine, Dr. Warren W. Morgan. Dr. Morgan gave a major boost to my career as an educator. His full name was Dr. Warren Woodrow Morgan. People called him Doc. He was the 29th president of Paul Quinn College. His 8-year tenure that lasted from 1984 to 1992 at the time was one of the longest in the school's history. I first met Dr. Morgan in 1984, shortly after he became president of the institution, to which I ended up devoting many years of my life. I saw him at a number of annual conferences of the AME Church and other meetings, including his presidential inauguration. In September 1986, I began doctoral studies at Baylor University. At that time, Dr. Morgan gave me a part-time position as coordinator of Archives and Cultural Center at PQC, then located in Waco. And in February 1987, he was the keynote speaker at the Black History Month celebration at Macedonia AME Church in Kaufman, where I was then serving as pastor. He was always an inspiring speaker. He often said, "I don't care if you get your degree from Yale or by mail. If it doesn't make you a better person, it is of no value." When I first started the doctoral program, I was hoping to begin teaching at Paul Quinn at that time. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was not qualified to teach anything because the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, SACS, required that in order to teach college classes, one had to have a master's degree and at least 18 graduate hours in the subject they taught. Well, I had a master's degree in church state studies, which takes in religion, history, and political science. I had to have classes in all three subjects. But unfortunately, I didn't have 18 graduate hours in any one subject. Well, in June of 1987, I became chairman of the religion department at Paul Quinn College. By that time, I had accumulated 18 graduate hours in religion, so I crossed a major threshold, and thus I was able to teach. And thus began a very exciting period of my life. I held the position of religion chair from 1987 to 1997, and again from 2007 to 2009. Dr. Morgan was born in 1943. He received his Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore in 1965, his Master of Science degree from Indiana University in 1966, and his Doctor of Education degree from Oklahoma State University in 1970. He served as staff director for the Florida House of Representatives, vice president of student affairs at Florida A&M University, and dean of student affairs at Benedict College. He also served as vice president of academic affairs at Paul Quinn College prior to his promotion to the presidency in 1984. On June the 25th of 1990, Paul Quinn's Board of Trustees voted unanimously to move the school from Waco to the former Bishop College in Dallas. How did I feel about that? I didn't like it. Not only am I a native of Waco, and just 2 years earlier I had thought I was moving back home for good. I was right in the middle of a PhD program. And when they decided to move, people asked me, well, do you plan to move to Dallas? And I had to explain if I were to move to Dallas, I'd have to drive back to Waco 3 days a week for class because I wasn't even halfway through the program yet. So, unfortunately, that move was not my call, and I had to make the best of it. Well, summer of 1990, I was heavily involved with packing, labeling, and other duties in preparation for the move. During the 1990-91 academic year, Paul Quinn operated two campuses, with Waco serving as a satellite of the Dallas campus. Provisions were made for students from the Waco area nearing graduation to take their final courses in Waco. And that year I had teaching duties on both campuses. Dr. Morgan directed Paul Quinn College's year of transition and presided over the 1991 graduation ceremony, which was held at Wilmer Hutchins High School. Sadly, serious problems had developed, and during the spring of 1992, I was deeply disturbed by a front page article in the Dallas Morning News reporting that he had been removed from the presidency by the Board of Trustees. And shortly before his departure, it was, I know there were people who were saying, yeah, we need a new president, we need to move forward with this. But I was very close to Dr. Morgan. He had given me some great opportunities. We had a very good relationship. And losing him as captain of the ship was, I knew it was not, things were not going to get better. They were probably going to get worse. But shortly before his departure, he sent me a note in response to my unsuccessful efforts to obtain a faculty improvement grant from the United Negro College Fund. But he urged me to keep trying, and I did. In 1994, I obtained such a grant, and as a result, was able to take a sabbatical and complete my doctoral dissertation. After leaving Paul Quinn, Dr. Morgan worked for Drew Pearson Marketing Incorporated, a company engaged in the design and manufacture of licensed private label and fashion headwear products. In 1993, he joined the staff of the Dallas Area Rapid Transit, DART, as Director of Equal Employment Opportunity. In 1999, he became Vice President of DART's Department of Diversity and Employment Opportunity. DART President Roger Snoble described him as a very important advisor on a whole host of topics affecting DART, and as respected by DART staff at every level and a valued member of our management team. Although the loss of the Paul Quinn presidency was a painful experience for him, Dr. Morgan, along with other former presidents, returned to the campus to participate in Founders Day in March of 1997. Harold Gamble, a longtime member of Adams Chapel AME Church, is now called Trinity Way AME Church, where the Morgan family worshiped. And by the way, from all indications, after they moved to Dallas, they never moved their membership. Brother Gamble, a longtime member of that church and also a longtime friend, we both had lunch with Dr. Morgan in the Paul Quinn cafeteria. And it was a wonderful reunion. We had a really good time together. On January the 12th, 2001, at the age of 57, Warren W. Morgan died of a heart attack at a basketball game in Dallas. I had a student who worked for DART who remembered seeing him, and like he came out to get an aspirin or something like that, and Dr. Morgan, you don't look well. Oh, I'll be okay. Well, she had a pretty good premonition that things were not right with him. A wake was held on January 17th at Evergreen Memorial Funeral Home in Dallas. This event included burial services of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity, of which he was a longtime member. His funeral was held in the Richard Allen Chapel at Paul Quinn College on January 18, 2001. I, along with other ministers who had been closely associated with him, participated in both services. The eulogy was delivered by the Reverend Daniel Caldwell, another longtime friend of mine. At the time, he was pastor of Adams Chapel AME Church, but he had moved to Dallas and was working for DART. And I believe he had saw Dr. Morgan that afternoon, and usual like Friday afternoon, well, I'll see you Monday morning. Well, it didn't happen. Daryl has served some other churches and has been a presiding elder since then. And it's my understanding he recently retired, and hopefully he's doing well. But Dr. Morgan had lived in a number of states, including North Carolina, where his body was taken. He was buried there in the AME Zion Cemetery. He was survived by his wife, DeJoyce, his son Jared, and many family, friends, students, and colleagues. It was in 2006 that Paul Quinn's National Alumni Association established the Warren W. Morgan Hall of Fame to honor professionalism in athletics, business, civic service, education, religion, and philanthropic support. On January 27, 2007, I was one of the inductees at the annual banquet. And seeking to be true to the legacy of Dr. Morgan. And here is one of the programs for that wonderful occasion. Here's a picture of Dr. Morgan, this great man who did so much for so many. And there is the page showing me as an inductee. I never had some other special awards given, some that some I knew and some I didn't know. But that was a very enjoyable night on January 27th, 2011. And Warren and DeJoyce Morgan were very good people. Sadly, DeJoyce has also passed away since then. And her full name was Agnes DeJoyce McRoy Morgan. She was born on September 21st, 1951, in Syracuse, New York. At an early age, she accepted Jesus Christ as her Lord and Savior at the Metropolitan Baptist Church in Cocoa, Florida. She graduated from Cocoa High School, received an Associate of Arts degree from Brevard Community College in Cocoa, a Bachelor of Social Work degree from Tuskegee University in Tuskegee, Alabama, and a Master of Liberal Arts degree from Dallas Baptist University in Dallas. She began work on her doctoral degree, but I don't think she ever completed it. And of course, she married Dr. Morgan, and they had a son named Gerard Morgan. I first met her during the fall semester of 1986 when her husband hired me at PQC. She served as director of Paul Quinn College's developmental office. I worked with her on a number of projects for the school. On June the 25th, 1990, when the Board of Trustees unanimously voted to move the school from Waco to Dallas, I ended up working with her on both campuses. And during the spring semester, I've already mentioned that about Dr. Morgan's loss of his position. However, she stayed there for a while, these several months, and um, I saw her a few times after Warren's death. It's my understanding that his successor uh, had a problem with her sticking around because her very presence was reminiscent of a past administration, and that is very unfortunate that such an attitude would prevail. And I once saw her at a conference at the Collin County Community College, and in 2002 she attended Paul Quinn's homecoming. I autographed her a copy of my book, Blind Lemon Jefferson, His Life, His Death, and Legacy, presenting it in memory of Dr. Warren W. Morgan. When I talked to her in 2011, she told me she had written a thesis at Dallas Baptist University related to Dr. J.W. Yancey, another former president of Paul Quinn, who died in 1994. When I talked with her in 2012, she had retired and moved to Mississippi, and she went home to be with the Lord on January the 14th, 2013. So she outlived him by 12 years and 2 days. She was a life member of National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, a Golden Life member of the Dallas Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta. At the time of her death, I was pastor of Wayman Chapel, AME Church in Ennis, and one of the founders of Delta Sigma Theta was a lady named Frederica Chase Dodd, who as a child was a member of Wayman Chapel, Ennis, and I more than one occasion referred to Wayman Chapel as Frederica Chase Dodd's home church. DeJoyce Morgan's awards included Outstanding Young Women of America, American Women's Association Woman of the Year for the Tuskegee Outstanding Alumni Service Award of 1982, the Paul Quinn College Administrator of the Year of 1987, Waco Mayoral Proclamation of DeJoyce Morgan Day in 1988, and Paul Quinn Alumni Meritorious Award in 1992, and Delta Advisor of the Year in 1993. Her funeral was on January 19th at Metropolitan Baptist Church in Cocoa, Florida. The eulogy was delivered by Dr. Hugh Prockington II. Interment was in Riverview Memorial Gardens in Cocoa. Well done, thou good and faithful servant, is some words that can be said to about both Warren Morgan and DeJoyce Morgan. By the way, here's a picture of DeJoyce from a newspaper article I wrote about her in the Ennis Daily News shortly after her death. They were good people, good friends, good colleagues, and I really miss both of them, but I appreciate the contributions they made getting me started in the education field. I've taught at several schools over the years. I've been working in education now for um, about 34 years. And the ride has been a good one, although it's had its bumps along the way. But that's the way life is. I give honor to Warren W. Morgan and his dear wife, DeJoyce. Have a good evening, and God bless.